everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after, well, it's been a while since we've seen a Jets outright loss. So, I mean, it feels like this is the first time that's happened in a long time, and I guess it is. I don't know if I take a look at this game and I think the Jets necessarily had their best, or maybe even the Calgary Flames had their best. I think the Calgary Flames were clearly the more desperate of the two teams. I think the shot volume kind of reflected that. The one thing I walk away from with this game is, in a game where I didn't think the Jets had their best, I still think this is an example of the Rick Bowness system at work here. And I've said this in the past, the system's designed on a night where, when your top guys aren't firing, this system keeps you in the game and gives you a shot at winning this game. The system's designed so that on a night when your goaltender maybe isn't at the top of their game, which I don't think Connor was on this night, you still have a chance at that game. And I think that's what we saw. I mean, if you were a Jets fan, you were watching this game and you were glued to the TV right until the horn went at the end there, because the Jets were in it right until the very end. I had thought maybe, we'd had these conversations in this show, in the last couple of shows, about the effect of, that Paul Morrissey era and the kind of weapons that maybe the Jets would have nowadays, but add that to the Rick Bowness defensive kind of system. And, I thought maybe we were going to see that. I thought the Jets were going to pull one out, tie that game up and send it to overtime. Didn't quite happen. But I mean, I don't, the Jets, I think we've been asking for them to get to their game and on top of their game. We made calls for that when they went on that road trip, which, I was very vocal about, saying I didn't think that they played very well. And the team itself didn't think it played very well. Got to that homestand, and then we saw from them more and more what they're supposed to look like against Montreal, and built on that with a bigger victory against Chicago, and then with an absolutely huge victory. You can't be up all the time. I think this is one of the games where the Jets weren't up. But this, to me, is one of the examples we've seen so far this season of the Jets losing a game in which I still think that they stuck to the system, right? You're not going to win every single night, but what I liked about it was the Jets kind of stuck with the system, stayed with playing Rick Bowness's style of hockey, and even though it didn't pay off, they didn't kind of come apart at the seams when they were challenged and it looked like they were going to lose, and kind of abandon the system and try and dive back into what we've seen from them in the past. And I think that's something to build on, personally. We'll check with Kenny, see if he agrees with me, see if that's something he can get behind. You know what we do when we're bringing Kenny into the show? We play the best music in the gosh darn business. Here comes our guy, Kenny. So, Ken, right off the bat, I can tell you a lot of people in the chat room not agreeing with how I feel about this. Jeep guy says, yikes, last year's Jets showed up in a big way tonight. That looked nothing like a Bones coach team. I don't agree with that at all. This idea of puck management being non-existent. NBHA Hockey says that was ugly hockey. I mean, part of that, if you want to look at it as ugly hockey, I think you could. What I saw was two teams. And we know that the Jets under Rick Bowness are trying to be a team that challenges more in the neutral zone. I think we saw that from both teams here tonight. Neither team was giving an inch. That's why there was just those constant kind of turnovers and schmozzles in the neutral zone. This was a battle of attrition between two teams. One that needed to make it a battle of attrition because Calgary needed to turn things out, and another one that needs to do it because that's what their coach is demanding of them. Yeah, it's not the prettiest hockey, but I think we knew when Rick Bowness was coming here that the days of pretty hockey with the Winnipeg Jets were kind of going out the window. Is that what we saw here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it. Obviously, desperation from the Flames. Obviously, 7 game losing skid, but I think 5 of those games they lost by a goal, and another one on Thursday was a 1 goal game before the empty netter. I do think the Jets were a little bit off in terms of their structure, but I also agree with you, Sean, in that they didn't really stray from the structure. I just think that there were a couple of errors that kind of ended up in the back of their net. I would say the Calgary was just a little bit more desperate and hungry. I would say I agree with you that the Jets did not have their best game, but they found a way to stick with it. And the fact that they were able to stay, like, it was a one-shot hockey game. I mean, if the Jets do anything on their 5-on-3 or with the man advantage other than give up the game-winning goal, they're still in that hockey game. It's a one-shot game, so I don't think they played. I think they had. I would say this. I mean, we haven't said it very often. They had a few too many passengers tonight, Sean. I mean, that's how I would describe it. I think that, and it wasn't that I don't think it was that these players weren't trying. I just don't think they had a whole lot in the legs, or some nights you just don't have your best. I think the Jets had a few too many of those players in the game, and I think their power play, quite frankly, let them down on a night where they weren't at their best. Those are the nights, Sean, we've talked about it before. Those nights the power play needs to pick up the team when it's not going at 5-on-5. Pierre-Luc Dubois thought the Jets were trying to be a little bit too pretty in terms of looking for the perfect play. I think their shot selection at times was not great, and overall, we're gonna dig deep into this, Sean. But I mean, quite frankly, I don't necessarily like how the Jets played a couple of their odd man rushes in terms of how they defended. We'll dig into that after the Lamplighter and things of that nature. But I agree with you. I think on a day that if you're a Jets fan, you look back and say, that wasn't anywhere near the best that the Jets have played. And the problem that Jets fans are having, Sean, tonight, the ones that are saying that it's horrendous, well, the Jets just played their best game of the year against the Dallas Stars. And today the Flames kind of, I would say, imposed their will on the Jets at times. And they were just, quite frankly, the better team. And they got a couple of bounces, and early kind of 2-pad stack ridiculousness on Mark Scheifele by Jacob Markstrom kind of allowed the Flames to get their feet underneath them. And the Jets just didn't really, I can't say they didn't recover because they got it to be a tie game. I just didn't think that they weren't sharp. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's interesting here because Bullish Bradley is saying 55 huge error and that he was lazy.
So
Okay, go for it.
no, you go and
Jump
then I'll
on it.
go.
No, I'd like you to hop on it. Go for it first, okay?
Yeah, just one quick thing for Bullish Bradley. I mean, here's the thing: the Jets. It's a very simple play, but when you overcommit, so the center ice face-off, Flames win it. They go back, and it goes D to D, Hannafin to Rasmus Anderson. The Jets are trying to be aggressive, so Brendan Dillon steps up on the right winger. Mark Scheifele is actually in perfect position in the neutral zone, except the puck kind of got onto Lindholm's stick, and he kind of, I wouldn't say that he necessarily shimmies away, but the puck kind of chips to the outside, and Scheifele gets caught kind of, Lindholm gets inside position on him, and then just kind of pulls away from him, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think that he actually played, he was actually in the proper position in the neutral zone. He just got beat by Lindholm. And then there too, I mean, like we were just talking about, I mean, he's standing still, but where do you want him to be? I mean, his man was Lindholm, but he got caught a little bit flat-footed. And what happened was Dylan DeMello then also gets caught in no man's land. He does not take away the pass across, nor does he take away the shooter. Sean, I want you to dig in because you play a little bit of defense. So to me, Dylan DeMello has to leave the shot for a Connor Hellebuck to take. He needs to do everything in his power to inhibit the pass across from Lindholm to Ruzicka. And he tried to do it, but then he kind of got spun onto the inside. And I don't think that some Jets fans are giving Lindholm enough credit for the pass that he makes. He basically waits till the perfect time, till DeMello overcommits, opens his legs for a split second, and at that split second, he rips it across. It's through. And I would even say this: I think Connor Hellebuck played it really well, but Ruzicka actually kind of his shot is a changeup. He one
Yeah.
times it perfectly, but it's not a crisp shot that was what Connor Hellebuyck was expecting. And it kind of just, I wouldn't say that it fooled him, but it definitely was not what he was expecting. So yeah, I mean, I guess it does fool him because it was kind of like a bit of a change up. So that's sort of what happened. I don't think it was a lazy play at all by Scheifele. I just think he got beat by a guy who was going full speed, and he kind of got caught flat-footed. And then I don't like the way that DeMello played it at all. I mean, again, the other thing too, you could slide, but I mean, Morrissey slid on the short-handed odd man rush, and the puck got through also. So I don't think there's a perfect formula. I just don't particularly think that DeMello played it overly well. And no, I mean, Mark Scheifele can't get beaten by Lindholm in terms of the acceleration, but I don't think it was a lazy play. I also maybe think that like Scheifele had exited the zone. I'm not sure that Scheifele didn't think that Brendan Dillon was actually there as the second defenseman safety valve. But again, I don't know that for sure. But I think there's a lot of blame to be assessed on that play. And like I said, at the end of the day, Hellebuyck does a good job of pushing across. If that shot is a one-timer that's hit hard, I think Hellebuyck actually makes the save. The puck kind of just trickled. And I'm not taking anything away from Ruzicka. He made a great play to get the one-timer. I just don't think it was... I think it was an accident that he had the change-up kind of a shot instead of actually ripping it on the offside one-timer.
Yeah, it's a bit of a change-up, but it's in the perfect spot, right?
Perfect, yes.
I don't think that whether he hits that hard or he doesn't hit it hard, where he put it, Connor Hellebuyck just couldn't get to that point. I do understand what people are saying about the Scheifele situation, because when I see Scheifele at the end there, I mean, that's one play where I want to see a guy flying back as fast as he can, diving, stretching out, putting his stick in, trying to break it up. If you don't get there, you don't get there. But there seemed to be effort left on the table in that situation. So I can understand it, because Mark Scheifele, he's there in the neutral zone. The puck breaks away, so he gets beat to the net. That's one thing. But the fact that there just didn't seem to be that over-the-top effort that we kind of seem to be seeing from players all over the ice under this Rick Bowness system. Like, listen, if that's actually Janssen Fjallby, is he not laying out the way that we saw him play there tonight? We'll have to get into talking about him, but he was absolutely phenomenal tonight, and a real eye-opener. I know there's a lot of people who've been texting me about how much they like his game. We'll get into that. But so I understand the part about Scheifele in that situation there. The DeMello thing, I mean, this is just a guy who falls victim to an absolutely phenomenal hockey IQ play there. Like, basically what happens there is, I know what you're saying, Ken. You take the pass and then you let the goalie take the shot. And in that situation, he's got the pass covered off, and the player looks like he's trying to pass it, and there's nothing there, and DeMello's got it sealed off, and it's great. So then he turns to look towards the goalie to shoot, and in order to stay with the play, DeMello turns and opens up the legs, and at that moment, the pass goes through. He just really got baited and fell for the bait, right? This is one of these situations where it's a brain reaction. He's not thinking in his head anything other than the fact that he is reactionary. It's like, if I tossed a golf ball towards your face right now, you'd pick it out of the air, right? That's what you do. That's what happened. And a really high hockey IQ guys are able to pull off those tiny little moves that get a reaction from their defender that is just it's like a knee-jerk reaction, right? So to me, I just give credit where credit's due. That was a phenomenal pass to open him up there. Is it an error in the end on DeMello? Yeah, because to your point, his job is, you're better off just lying across the ice to make sure that pass doesn't get there. So I do agree. It's an error there, but I don't think it's an egregious error. It's just good hockey playing out there. I would say it's not a lack of effort on DeMello's part there. Scheifele's, I'm not going to say it's an outright lack of effort, but I think there was more juice to be squeezed out of that orange on that play. So I can understand why people are saying that. Before we go too far, I just wanted to say, I talk all the time about Frank and the boys at Vittorio Rossi and how good they make us look. This is what happens when Frank doesn't have the run of what I wear. Look at me. I look like a slob. I probably got stains on here somewhere. I need Frank. Otherwise, I look absolutely ridiculous. So if you don't want to look ridiculous, and you want a guy who's got the absolute Midas touch in this town when it comes to making people look good, go see Frank and the boys at Vittorio Rossi down on Corridon Avenue. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. You need suits, you need ties, you need any of those things. Or, like, I'll tell you this, their casual wear, Ken, my God. Could I go? If I won the lottery, that's the first place I would be heading down, is to see Frank and the boys and get outfitted there, because they got some good stuff there.
Yeah, one good thing though, like, look at that hat. You take that hat off and give it a little close up over.
Oh here. Yeah, check it out. We got the TCB. We got the Trans Canada Brewing, which should probably, let's just get and dive right into it. What's your Lamplighter? Your Trans Canada Brewing Lamplighter on the night, Ken?
Oh, I mean, prettiest goal of the game is obviously the Dubois goal. I mean, just exceptional play all around. Mason Appleton, kind of gets that. He will not get an assist on the play, but the third assist belongs to Mason Appleton, who made a really nice play to get it over to Pionk, who got it over to Morrissey, who got it over to Pierre-Luc Dubois for his 7th of the year. I mean, that goal is absolutely absurd in terms of the puck movement, and it kind of helped get the Jets going, didn't? I mean, they didn't really have a whole lot going offensively, and they really made a nice play on that one. It was really an impressive play all around. And the defenseman, like, really active again, right? I mean, Josh Morrissey, we're going to get into him a little bit later, but man, another 2 assists. He's just been absolutely dynamic in terms of his offensive play. But I mean, the Dubois goal is quite clearly the Lamplighter of this game. And I mean, again, there are some other candidates, certainly. But, I mean, to me, that's a pretty obvious goal in terms of the Lamplighter itself. That was a very, very impressive goal and great puck distribution, and ended up in the back of the net.
Well, gotta say, all you folks out there, if you agree with Ken, just throw your Lamplighter in there as well, but you can go any way you want. I know someone already had said that they thought Trevor Lewis's goal was the Lamplighter. There you go. Ian Bloomberg says it right there. But share with us what you think your Lamplighter is, and it gives you an opportunity to win an 8-pack. Get that off the screen, Ken. An 8-pack of Frosty Trans Canada Brewing Lamplighter Amber Ale. Absolutely nectar of the gods. And if you don't want to wait for us to hand one out to you, you can always head down to Trans Canada Brewing Company and go check out their tap room at 1290 Kenaston. Great spot, great place, great beer. They got it all going on there. And you know what? I'm going to hand out our Lamplighter winner from last show, Lowry's Right Hand, a user who left his comments in the chat show, Lowry's Right Hand. And so when I'm at home, I like to ring the bell, the Trans Canada Brewing bell. That's another 8-pack handed out right there. Good stuff. Before we go too far, Kenny, I want your Johnston group got you covered moment of the game.
Yeah, you got to go to Jacob Markstrom on the got you covered. I mean, man, oh man. I mean, it was a vintage 2-pad stack, but the strange thing is that it's actually Markstrom's. It's not even the glove; it's the cheater on the glove that he kind of went with the Patrick Waugh windmill. And he was able to get the cheater, I think, on it. Look, his pad was there, but I think he almost got his glove in front of his pad, much to the dismay of Mark Scheifele, who thought it was a clear goal. Instead, Markstrom just makes the great save, and it was an important save in the game, too. I mean, I would say that to me, is the got you covered. And yes, Massimo De Luca, I'm a little sniffled up here. It was battling through. I don't have my best, but I'm going to give you everything we possibly have, and that's what we're here for. No doubt. Yeah, so that's my got you covered for sure.
No doubt. Excellent moment. Just want to give a shout out to the Johnston group and the boys at the Johnston group, the Kenny and Renny OGs. They've been there since the start with us. We really appreciate them being along for the ride. Great stuff. I want to talk about Josh Morrissey. You brought him up there, 2 assists tonight. I just thought, this was another night where everything that he does was on full display. The way he's pushing the puck up the ice, the way that he's pressing guys when they try and get across that zone, to another 2 points, leading the Jets in points. Where do you see Josh Morrissey at this stage, Ken? Is he playing the best hockey of his career?
Well, it's right up there. I mean, we know that last year he got back to being that kind of top pairing kind of guy. And for those folks who didn't watch the end of the broadcast, I mean, Kevin Bieksa was just on and saying, he wasn't, quite frankly, he wasn't sure that Josh Morrissey had, offensive potential to become a true number one defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets after the massive turnover on the back end. And he said, quite frankly, that's changed. I mean, Josh is playing at an exceptionally high level. That offensive, we knew that he was drafted as an offensive player, but then he didn't get a lot of offensive opportunities early on in his career. But now he is getting those opportunities, and he's making the absolute best of it right now. He has been a bona fide top pairing defenseman for the past, season and change. And Sean, you're right. I mean, this is probably the very best that he has played. But this is the thing that we know about Josh Morrissey, not just from having him on the show, but from being around him. Josh isn't just happy with being a top pairing guy. He wants to continue to improve. He will work to continue to improve. Last year he had career highs in most categories, and he's going to want to continue to push to become an even better player. And that's what I'm seeing from him. I'm seeing a guy whose edge work has just been magnificent. His ability to push the pace and to get up the ice. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys benefiting from the system that Rick Bowness installed in terms of having the defense jump up and get involved in the rush. Nobody has benefited more than Josh Morrissey. He's basically been giving the clear green light, and he knows when to use it. He's not just using it recklessly. He knows when to jump, and he is jumping at the proper times. And it has allowed him to, have just an exceptional start to the year where he's leading the Jets in points. And that's not because they've got a bunch of guys struggling offensively. Josh has been the guy delivering for the most part and doing just an exceptional job. What are you seeing from him?
Well, I'm seeing what Massimo DeLuca says here. Bone's system is allowing for JMO to be more offensive. He's racking up the points. Like, listen, this is a team the last couple of years has been offensively challenged when it comes to the defense. It's been a problem. And I think it was to the degree that there was a lot of people that were thinking, I mean, we've seen Schmidt in the past be somewhat offensive. We saw a couple of years ago, Neil Pionk was offensive. But what we never really saw was like a whole unit, the Winnipeg Jets defense as a unit, being dangerous offensively. And I'll be honest, I was starting to wonder if the mix of players that they had was capable of being offensive as a defensive unit. And I'll say this, Rick Bowness, you got to give him credit. He came rolling into Winnipeg. He had a bunch of things that he wanted to take care of. He wanted to take care of culture. If you were watching the game afterwards on After Hours, it was one of the first questions that Scott Oak asked him about it. It was the culture. Jumps in, I would say, it's early in the season, I know, but it sure looks to me like the Jets culture has changed. It's gone through a little bit of an evolution. I think it's obvious for us in the room, talking with the players, just the interaction with the media alone. I think the interaction between the players and fans, I think the interaction between the players and each other, I think has changed. So I think Rick Bowness walked in, he wanted to do that. I think he's already done that. But another one, this is, you have to admire coaches who come in and say, this is a problem and we're going to fix it. And then they follow up by fixing it, because that's what's happening right now. Rick Bowness came in and he said, we are not, you remember this, Ken, in training camp. He's like, we're not going anywhere unless we start getting more offense from our defense. So they've got the green light. That was the term. They've got the green light to jump up in the play to make that kind of stuff happen. We're seeing players like Josh Morrissey up above the hash marks, above the ringette line, far more than we used to see from those players in the past. And it's adding to the flow. It's adding to the flow of their game. Josh Morrissey, to your point, in junior was an offensive defenseman. He came into the league looking like that. Paul Maurice was always really known for saying this about Josh Morrissey. I think it's right. Josh Morrissey was told, you need to go home and work on this because these are your weaknesses. And it was mostly defensive stuff. And he went that offseason and came back and had basically turned everything around and turned his weaknesses into his strengths in one offseason. It's like a little bit of the mythology or the lore about Josh Morrissey that Paul Maurice used to build up about him. But what I had wondered is if in the pursuit of becoming a defensive, an NHL-worthy defensive force, the way that Josh Morrissey, I believe, has been for a long time in this league, I'd wondered if he'd lost the ability to go back and be that offensive defenseman that he was. when he was in junior. Well, it sure looks to me like he's found it. And it sure looks to me like Rick Bowness's system is what has allowed him to find it. 2 more points here tonight. They held up a graph, which I thought was interesting. One of 3 defensemen in the NHL leading their team in scoring right now. That's not easy to do on a team that has Mark Scheifele and Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's playing really good hockey right now, and we can get into, because we should get into him, because not only did he score, but he was vintage SHI, you-know-what disturber here tonight. But on a team that has as many
shift
weapons...
disturber, shift.
Yes,
shift.
Yes. The Kyle Connors of the world, and I know he's not going right now, but all the offensive weapons that the Winnipeg Jets have, and Josh Morrissey is leading the team in scoring. I would say this, Ken, maybe it makes sense because what Rick Bowness, another one of the things he said he was going to come in and do, and that he's been trying to do, is to make this a more defensive team. The numbers bear that out. They're a more defensive team, but he's wanted to add certain kinds of offense back in. And Josh Morrissey is a guy who had the defense locked down this entire time. So in the effort by Rick Bowness to not only make this a more defensive team, but to free up certain kinds of offense for them, to me, I think a lot of players, the Mark Scheifeles of the world, the Kyle Connors, are dealing with being more defensive than they've been in the past, and they're trying to figure out how to make sure they cover that off while still going down and trying to put up numbers on the other end. Well, Josh Morrissey had it down. Josh Morrissey had the defensive part of his game down, so he's getting that green light aspect probably more so than any other player, or the defense, I guess, because you can throw Pionk in there and maybe even Nate Schmidt as well. But they're getting more freedom than they've had in the past, whereas I think a lot of the forwards under Rick Bowness's system are dealing with a little less freedom than they've had in the past. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised that Neil Pionk has had the start he's had, or especially that Josh Morrissey has come out and is leading this team in scoring. It is good to see. He's playing phenomenal hockey, and you got to give it to Juice with that comment. I'm not sure there's a lot of people out there who did ever see Josh Morrissey as a 1A defenseman, maybe a 1B or a number 2 defenseman. But boy, oh boy, he's sure looking like a number 1 defenseman right now.
Yeah, he really is. And I mean, that's something that the Jets needed. I mean, we've been talking about it since, the departure of Dustin Byfuglien and Jacob Trouba, right? They needed someone to step into that role. Some people want it to happen, 5 years ago, but I mean, it took some time, but Josh has really started to flourish, and we know that he went through a tremendously difficult thing in terms of his personal life, and we've talked about this a lot in the last 2 years. Josh is enjoying the game so much. You can just see the rink has sort of become a refuge for him, and he just loves the game, and he continues to work to get better.
Hey, I just wanted to get a shout out here because Jeff Kabilis, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, was wishing you well earlier in the show. And I had noticed, I left a comment with him on Twitter earlier on. Sounds like he got some bad news about one of his animals. And I've got 5 fur babies, 3 cats, and 2 dogs of my own. I know they're like family. I'm sorry, Jeff, that you're going through that. That's a tough one. I'm sorry, but let's move on here. Do you want to give a shout out to our guy Lou?
Yeah, you bet. For all of your real estate needs, if you're buying, you're selling, you're looking to rent, any of those things, Lou Ferlin is your guy. You can reach him. You got all the numbers here. The office number 204-989-5000, or his personal line 204-791-9971. Lou has been kind enough to be my realtor. Over the years, he's found me 2 incredible properties that we have been incredibly blessed to have, and he's just an outstanding human being with great ties to the sporting community, and we're happy to have him on board and to have his support as we move forward here.
Ken was about to lock himself in the poorhouse, and Lou put him in the penthouse. That's the kind of action that Lou is able to take care of there.
That's true.
He's the guy. Hey, give me your...
building equity.
Equity. Exactly. There you go. Good life choices is one of that's one of Ken's favorite sayings. When we get out and about, he always says good life choices, while dealing with Lou Ferlin was a good life choice for you. Since we're talking defense, give me an idea, because I know you texted it to me earlier on how much you're loving the Schmidt-Dillon pairing. Why are you so high on those 2 guys, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, they're just kind of reading off each other, incredibly well. I mean, these are 2 guys who are great friends. They enjoyed their time together as a pairing, even though it was very brief. Last season, when they played together, they had quite a bit of success at 5-on-5 at a time where the Jets' defense core wasn't always at its best. Despite Josh Morrissey really kind of getting back to his game, but I really like the combination there. The aggression in Schmidt's game has been one of those things where again, I was fortunate enough to be in the Edmonton bubble for that first round and change. And Nate Schmidt is back to the Vegas version of Nate Schmidt. I mean, yes, he had a tough year with the Vancouver Canucks. He didn't have his best year with the Jets last year. We know that. He's back to getting his feet moving. He's getting up ice. He's getting his shot through. And he just, they really read off each other well. Brendan Dillon does a great job. I know you love this, and I want you to dig in a little bit more. But Brendan Dillon is the guy who, he's very aggressive when it comes to his pinching. He's got kind of a nose to be able to sniff out plays. He brings that physical nature. I mean, it's something where those two really kind of feed off each other, and they really kind of embrace and embody what a team is looking for when you come to a shutdown pairing. Now, again, that doesn't mean you always have to play against the top line, but if you're playing against somebody in the top six, that's a big challenge. But those guys enjoy the challenge, and I think that we're seeing both of them play at a pretty high level, and I think that they can continue to both improve and read off each other as they continue to spend time together on a pairing.
Well, I'll talk quickly about Dillon. Man, oh man, he I think is just doing such a good job. Now it cost them in a breakaway tonight, right? That constant pinching at the blue, and I shouldn't call it pinching, standing up on their own blue line, those zone entry denials. This team right now is, and this kind of goes back to what I was talking about on the top of the show. People were calling it an ugly game, and I guess I don't look at it that way, because when you're playing in a game like that, when you're on the ice playing in a game like that, and you're constantly getting stood up at the other team's blue line, it ends up in that kind of stuff where the puck gets chipped off your stick, it gets in your skates, you're kicking at it, there's no flow, other guys are whacking at the puck, it's turning up the other way, going the other way, the other team takes it, and then it gets turned over again. So yes, if you're watching that game, and if you're into it for, like the flow and all that kind of stuff, hey, go watch that Canadiens-Penguins game earlier on tonight, because that had that in spades. Those teams were moving. But this was a muck fest, right? And the Jets turned things into a muck fest. They did it the other night against the Dallas Stars. This is how you have success. You frustrate the other team. You turn over pucks. You try and get them cheating. Calgary didn't do that tonight. Like I said, it was a battle of attrition, but the Jets do such a good job this year, I find, when they're playing Bone's system, of standing the other team up at the blue line. And Dillon is one of the best at it. And the way that he's engaging and jumping up, boy, oh boy, he I think is just absolutely doing a great job. And Schmidt, I feel like, is a guy he's going to break out. I think he's going to start getting more points than what we're seeing from him, because I think he just does a really good job of getting that puck to the net so far this year. And I think the Jets are doing, here's an interesting one, Ken. Like, for how long did we talk last year, as soon as Dave Lowry took over the team, and before that, the kind of negotiating by the Jets coaches to try and get their players to go to the net, and they just couldn't do it. Well, holy smokes, it's happening nonstop now, right? Like, the Jets are getting to the front of the net. Nate Schmidt is getting that puck to the front of the net. I feel like I'm marking it down. I know there's not as many people watching because it's late at night, but mark it down. I feel like we're going to see Schmidt's going to get the payoff from that coming down. You're going to start seeing a lot more points roll in for him, maybe a few goals, some tipped in shots, that kind of stuff. I feel like that's coming. So I've got all the time in the world for your idea that pairing is doing really, really well. Here, I'm going to go to our home field dig deeper comment of the day, and I'm going to go to Paul Robert, who says, love how Dubois just keeps making friends in every city. Gotta love his compete level. He pulled out something, Paul Robert did here, that I am entirely behind. You and I, quite often when we're not together, we text back and forth as the game was going on. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, not because he scored, but just because of the way he plays, always ends up being a topic of conversation with us back and forth. And I said, I just love how he turns every game into a war. one thing I really loved, Ken, is when he went in and drew that penalty and he got bumped by the D-man into Markstrom and then went crashing down in the back of the net. He's got Big Z, Zadorov, on his back, a big tough guy, and he could care less about him. He's trying to get at the goaltender, right? And I love that move because I honestly don't think he's that mad at the goaltender. But I think anytime a goaltender opens a door that you can go after them and try and abuse them, as a player, you should kick that door in and go after the goaltender right now. And it's funny because the door at one point drops the glove and is just trying to get Dubois' attention. But Dubois' attention is right where it should be. Right on the goaltender, because the goaltender gave him the opportunity to try and get in his kitchen, and you always want to do that. I just think it's a guy. I always talk about these cerebral hockey plays, and that was that on the Jets' second goal of the game. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a cerebral pest. It's psychological warfare that he engages in. It's not just walking up and smacking a guy in the mouth. He's irritating the hell out of guys, and that was just a perfect example of that. And Paul Robert pointed it out, and that, of course, is why Paul Robert is getting credit for our dig deeper home field comment of the game. And of course, if you're a business and you want to stand out, Home Field can help you do it. Check them out. Ken, do you have their website there?
Yeah,
Ken?
myhomefield.ca.
There we go. And before we shut this down too, we should give a shout out to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union. They've just launched a new website and a new banking experience. Go check it out. If you are members, like Ken and I both are, there's plenty of reason to bank there. One of them, of course, being their on-fee account. You can save $222 per year by having one of these accounts. Simply set up a recurring direct deposit every month to your Cambrian checking or savings account, and you qualify. No minimum balance required. Go check out these websites. They do a really good job. And if you were checking it out on the last show, you had a chance to win Jets tickets given away by Cambrian. Not only are they constantly doing stuff in the community, they're throwing some bones in the Kenny and Renny chat room as well. That was absolutely great. Hey, line juggling. We got to talk about line juggling.
Hang on, are we doing those Moose tickets or not? Not today.
I don't think we're doing it today. No,
okay,
we're not doing it today.
One quick one before we shift gears. Speaking of people that make friends, we encouraged the folks in the chat room to talk about loss. I was at a funeral today for one of the guys who's known for making friends all over the city, Zach Hirschman. It was at the convention center, and it was a very emotional day for a lot of folks, but lost way too soon. But one of the great human beings around, and it was great to see a lot of people. And we're thinking about Zach's family at this time and all of his friends, and I'm glad I was able to have time to get there this afternoon.
And I got to say, Ken, I know you got the sniffles, but I know from talking behind the scenes here that that's an emotionally draining situation for you. So thanks for powering through this. We're going to get through this show. I like it that people can talk about this kind of stuff. I like that Jeff talked about that earlier on. And healthy. It's healthy to talk about that stuff. Get it out. Feel free to do it on our show anytime you want. Kenny and Renny, a chat room. We appreciate it. Let's get to the line.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I have one more thing on Dubois before we shift gears there. And yes, I do agree with the psychological warfare. In his post-game address with reporters in Calgary that I was able to get the audio from our guys that are on site, Scott Billick and Mike McIntyre, on the play with Markstrom, this was his comment. I thought he took his leg out and tripped me. That's a dangerous play. I think it's a dirty play. You saw what happened with Drake Batherson and Aaron Dell. You talk about goalie safety in this league, and I'm all for that. I'm 100% on board with that, but I wasn't going towards him. I get pushed. I think it was by Rasmus Andersson, but I wasn't going towards him. I thought his leg came out. I mean, I've got to look at the replay. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it didn't. If it didn't, I'll take back what I said, but I thought it was a very dangerous and very dirty play. And Sean, I mean, I did also think it was subtle, but there is no doubt in my mind that Markstrom stuck his leg out. And again, did Dubois need to shoot the puck into the corner after he went offside on the power play? No, he didn't. I think it was a strategic move to get into the head of the goaltender.
Yeah.
But I'm also not on board with Markstrom sticking his leg out, especially in that scenario when he gets bumped, because if that happens, around the goal line, again, he's far enough away that he's not going to go head first into the boards. But that's a dangerous play, and I'm also for goalie protection. But there are times when you get involved, sometimes things are going to happen, and I think that was sort of what Dubois was getting at. So he was like, if you want to stick your leg out, I might want to stick my elbow out or my fist out or whatever else. And again, that's neither here nor there. But it was an interesting sequence of events, let's say.
Well, I'll say this: like, I know what you're saying about the leg sticking out, but Pierre-Luc Dubois got exactly what he was looking for in that situation. Pierre-Luc Dubois is skating in, shoots the puck into the corner, and right, it's not like he's shooting it on the goaltender, but he's doing a flyby past the goaltender, right?
That could have been unsportsmanlike conduct, could it not? If you shoot the puck that late after the whistle?
Well,
No?
but into the corner, I think if you're throwing it into the corner, I don't think it is. But this is why I'm saying I think he's brilliant
Why shoot
at being
there?
a psychological pest.
He took 5 strides.
He took 5 strides and he's heading right past the goalie crease. Like, yeah, there's no reason for him to keep going. But I know what you're saying. You're saying it's a dangerous play by Markstrom. But this Pierre-Luc Dubois went fishing and he threw the lure out and they took the bait and they got a penalty out of it. Like,
Yep.
Pierre-Luc Dubois got exactly what he wanted out of that play. And acting like he's mad and indignant by the whole situation just helps sell it to the ref. But like, as a defenseman, if a guy's doing a flyby past your goalie, I'm not surprised that he went and gave him a bump. That's what you would do in that situation. And Pierre-Luc Dubois knows that. It's the reason he's doing it. And then he's positioning himself so that if the defenseman does give him a bump, well, he's going to bump him towards the goaltender. Well, now he's got an excuse to do a real tight flyby past the goaltender. And now because the goaltender feels like his space is being invaded upon, he sticks the knee out to kind of give him a little bit of, a little bit back. And then boom, suddenly he's in behind the net. And now it's on, right? Now the goaltender is taking a shot at you. And like I said, Zadorov is trying to break it up. And PLD is just enraged at the goaltender. And really, I think this is a symphony. It is a symphony that Pierre-Luc Dubois is conducting, and everyone on the ice is just falling for it. And it's delicious, and it's great, and it's high IQ pest work. I've got all the time in the world for it. He turns games into a war. And if you're a fan and you're watching it tonight on a game where, rightfully, as was called out by some people in the chat room earlier on, it's not the prettiest game of hockey. It was a battle of attrition, like I said, but a battle is a battle. And when battles turn a little bit ugly, like Pierre-Luc Dubois likes to make them, they get to be a lot more fun. I thought it was just great. I thought he was top of his game when it came to that. Never mind him scoring.
Great theater for sure. And it was interesting. He also seemed quite frustrated with the double call with Blake Coleman the first time when they both were given penalties, where he got called for holding, and then Coleman went for the old, Cobra Kai sweep the leg when he tripped him on the way down. So he was definitely not impressed with that call either. But
this is interesting.
I texted you. I love the engagement. I love the engagement on a night where not a lot of the Jets' top 6 forwards were really going. I thought Dubois was trying to kind of drag some people into
the fight. Yeah.
And then we'll transition into the rest of it now. But I just didn't think the Jets' top 6. We have applauded many of their excellent efforts. The Jets' top 6, quite frankly, was not good enough tonight. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's the perfect segue into our next situation here. But just before we do, I just wanted to say it's good to see General Imlerith, who has spent some time on our show despite being, I believe, living in Calgary and being a Calgary Flames fan. This is an interesting one. He says it's Markstrom who's trying to get into the other players' heads. If so, then we got to see 2 players kind of going at each other with like the chess battle of frustration. And you know what? You give credit to Markstrom. I know he hasn't had the best year so far, but he was probably the best player on the ice tonight. If I had to pick one, he's probably the guy. And this is one of the things that he did, was to kind of get things going and a little bit heated. I didn't think the Calgary Flames were going to survive that 5-on-3, but they did. I thought it was crazy. I remember saying to you, what the heck are they doing right now? It looked to me like they were trying to give the game away. And you know what, Ken? Let's be honest. They probably were. Like, I don't think that that was planned. I think that they were kind of unraveling. This is a team that hasn't been able to hold leads, and they've been blowing leads. And if you want to see why, well, I think it's these little plays like this where they end up taking these unnecessary penalties and putting their backs against the wall. They got away with it tonight. I don't think they've been getting away with it lately. But you made the comment about the top six not being where you wanted them tonight. There was a lot of line juggling happening tonight. Now, this is going to be a chicken and the egg argument. I'm going to tell you my take on it before we do this. At the start of that game, I know the Jets started a little bit slow. I didn't think it was necessarily a slow start as much as it was that Calgary just really came off that road trip there at home. So they had a whole bunch of energy. I thought the Jets survived it and then had a really, really strong pushback. There was a point there in that first period where I was just looking at the way that the Appleton, Scheifele, and Conr line was playing. And I just thought to myself, like, these guys are just on their game. So I thought they looked great. Now, after Lowry got hurt for a little bit there and went off the bench, and we started seeing them cycling centerman through the lines the way that they were doing that, the lines started juggling. But it didn't end there. Lowry came back, and then things started to get really, really juggled to a point that I think it was Kyle Conr from the first line was on with Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is the centering. Here's your second line guy. And Janssen Fialbi was on with them, and they had a heck of a shift that I thought looked good. But in the end, I think that Rick Bowness, in an attempt to get things going, which I thought, at least with that first line, were already kind of going. I thought that he went to the line blender, and I thought it hurt them tonight. I thought it kind of discombobulated everybody. I thought that at the beginning of the game, that Scheifele line was going, and then I feel like Scheifele got a little bit lost when the line started getting juggled. So I'm a big believer that he started juggling the lines, and that's what took them all out of their rhythm. What's your take on it?
Yeah, for me, Sean, I just thought they were looking for life, and I didn't think that Blake had his legs today. Blake Wheeler, he's been playing very well lately. Again, I don't think it's necessarily effort with Blake. It almost never is. He's always trying to go, but I don't think that he had his legs, and they didn't really have their hands going. There were, some guys didn't have their legs, Sean. Others didn't have their hands, and some of them didn't have either. And when that happens, it's hard on the top six. I mean, it's hard on any player when you're not feeling your best. But for me, I didn't like Blake's game. I didn't. Kyle Conr had a few chances. I didn't like his shot selection that led to the shorthanded goal. Easily blocked and then, too, speaking of cerebral plays, Kelly Rudy thought, I'm not, again, Kelly's around Michael Backlund a lot more than you and I are. He thought that he was trying to flip it up to himself. It was a bit of a play that fooled the opposition because Kyle Conr probably thought the flip was going all the way down the ice. And then the next thing you knew, he had to try to catch up on the 3-on-2 rush, and he wasn't able to catch Backlund before he gets it over to Trevor Lewis. Right. So that was interesting. I want to get into something. I know some people are down on Cole Perfetti. It's funny. So was it a selfish penalty by Cole Perfetti to cross-check Brett Ritchie? Yes, it was. But number two, I'm actually totally okay with him taking that penalty. Because I am, because Sean, I would prefer that he took a cross-checking penalty, that he gave somebody a shot a little bit up high when they're running him. But Brett Ritchie also ran him in the first period, and I think that was a dangerous hit by Brett Ritchie because he sticks his leg out. Perfetti's trying to get out of the way. I don't like that hit at all. Brett Ritchie plays hard. I got no problem with that. His job is to play hard on the fourth line. He sticks his left leg out a little bit and catches Perfetti knee on knee. So then the next time when he runs him into the end boards, I'm actually okay with the retaliation. Again, you would always prefer the player initiate than to retaliate. And yeah, some people will say, oh, well, if that was somebody else, you'd be ripping them for taking the penalty. And, that could be true. But for a guy who's been hit too often in the first 13 games of the year, I'm okay with Perfetti sticking up for himself. Is it a good time to do down by a goal at that situation? No. So sure, the grin says Perfetti needs to pick his spots better. Well, when do you want him to do it? On the first one, he didn't have an opportunity to retaliate because he was trying to get out of the way. I'm okay with them showing a little bit of front. That's one, Sean, we've all been on those teams. That's one where you're like Cole, we've got you. We're going to kill this off. Is it a selfish penalty? Still, yes, it was. But actually, you're hoping that by cross-checking back, maybe the next person isn't going to run you. And I also think, Sean, we talked about flops a few times in the first 13 games. Brett Ritchie's a pretty big guy. And yes, Cole Perfetti he did cross-check him, but come on now. I mean, Brett Ritchie's a lot bigger guy than Cole Perfetti. I think that he sold it a little bit, and that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to sell it in that situation. I'm just saying I don't think it's an egregious penalty by Cole Perfetti. Does he need to pick his spots better? Sure. But part of me is okay with it because at some point you got to stick up for yourself, and that's one example of a way that you're going to be able to do that. Now, like I said, I don't like the timing of it necessarily in a one-goal game when you're down as a member of the Winnipeg Jets, but I can understand where things were at with him on that one. And sorry, in terms of the juggling, I'm not sure. Chicken and egg. I mean, Rick Bowness he doesn't want to change the lines with regularity. He said that to us, but at the same time, I think it was pretty clear, Sean, that the offense wasn't happening today. One thing I'm very curious about, and I'm curious for your thoughts, I do like Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Conr getting a chance to get going together because they need to get Kyle Conr going. What about putting Perfetti back with them? Because Perfetti played on that line for quite a bit last year on his off wing. Sorry, a lot would be different because Cole didn't even play 20 games last year, but he spent quite a bit of time when he was in the lineup with those guys. And, maybe that playmaking ability could help him. But yeah, I mean, then you have Wheeler, Scheifele, and Appleton. Now, Appleton has played some left wing before. Is that an optimal, usage of the lines? I'm not sure. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just curious if that might be something that they might consider. At some point.
Okay, so there's so many different directions I want to go in here, but let's start with what you just asked about putting Perfetti, Conr, and Dubois back together. I mean, I love the idea of it, and it's this is going to allow us to kill two birds with one stone because Manitoba Ball Hockey says you guys haven't talked about Conr yet. It needs to be addressed. I couldn't agree more. Like Kyle Conr at this stage, it's funny. We go right back to that first game. And I talked about Bones throwing Kyle Conr on the ice in that situation to get the empty netter. Is one of two goals he has this year. Like I thought it was important to do that to try and get your guy going. Now he gets the goal. It didn't get him started the way that we thought here. But at this stage, Kyle Conr had another nice opportunity here tonight. It was a great save by Markstrom. But what I see when I see a guy like that who's constantly he's a sniper and he's constantly getting opportunities. He's constantly getting robbed, right? Like he is a guy who's just not at the level he was at last year. Because what happens with snipers like him, the way he was operating last year with the Austin Matthews, and you can see Austin Matthews is waking up. Go take a look at the goal he got tonight. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Those guys just end up putting the puck in a spot that the goalies just can't get to it, right? The goalie's just not making the save because they're hitting their spot. Kyle Connor's not hitting his spot right now. That's what it is. It's affected him. He doesn't seem to be setting up and taking that one-timer on the power play the way that he used to. Now, maybe there's an argument to be made that teams are taking that away. But if I were Kyle Conr, I'd like to see him, or if I'm Rick Bowness, I'd like to see Kyle Conr getting a little greedier and trying to get that one-timer off, right? So just to quickly address him, and I'd like you to pick up on Conr when I'm done, but I got to go back and do your thing. I love the idea of Conr, Dubois, and Perfetti. I like that. I like the idea of seeing Conr and Dubois on the ice there, and I thought that it worked out well. And then I felt like I didn't really see it again after that. So to me, I didn't understand the line juggling tonight. It was kind of like they were just spinning the wheel and sending whoever on the out at any point in the game. Now, what I do like about that is I think it gives everyone on the team, including guys like Saku Manalainen and Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, and then you go up the line to the Pierre-Luc Dubois and the Kyle Connors, just the feeling that they've got confidence in everybody. I like that. I like that they're instilling that, and I think you're seeing guys like Saku Manalainen quickly becoming, I know he looked good in camp, Ken, but he's looking better than he looked in camp. And Axel Jonsson-Fjällby is a guy who really couldn't find a way to stick in the NHL. He's on the Jets because he got sent down to, or the Washington Capitals tried to send him down to their farm team. This did not look like an AHL player to me tonight. He was all over the place. So I love the idea that it's instilling that confidence, but it bounced around too much. I want to see, like you're saying, Perfetti and Dubois and Conr. I want to see them get together and have a couple shifts to try and rekindle what they've done before. Because right now, bouncing Conr around, he was at the end of the game, he was out on the ice with Scheifele and a number of guys, and then he was out later on with another with Pierre-Luc Dubois again. And it just seems like he's lining up against, or tonight, it seemed like he's lining up with someone new at all times. And it feels like they're just spinning the wheel and trying to say, does this work for you? Does this work for you? Does this work for you? Well, if you don't feel he's getting what you need him to get on the line he's on right now, strategically find the line that you think fits him best and give him some time with that line. I think that needs to be done. And then I just want to back up quickly to the Perfetti thing that you're talking about. I couldn't disagree with you more, Ken, on that situation with Perfetti. And there's a couple reasons why. One, that Perfetti cross-check is not carving out any space. That was pure frustration. That was him getting up, taking a dumb penalty in that moment, and cross-checking that player. It didn't hurt that player. It's the same deal as I was talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois. That player got exactly what he was looking for from Cole Perfetti. Baited, he took the bait, he's off the ice. That's just a young player frustrated about getting run. But the biggest problem is he's being asked to take care of his business. Cole Perfetti is a young player, B, not the biggest player, and C, he's a highly skilled guy. For all three of those reasons, it's the trifecta. It's the perfect storm of reasons why someone like Brendan Dillon or Adam Lowry or Pierre-Luc Dubois or even Mark Scheifele should be stepping in and doing something about this situation. The hit earlier in the game, like you'd said, he'd already taken the knee. You could tell he didn't like it. It bothered him. He was looking for protection from the ref. The ref didn't give it to him. So then the next place you look for protection is from your teammates, and it didn't come. And so when he gets run again the next time, by the way, that hit that he responds to with the cross-check, I have no problem with that hit. I think it's a great hit. The only problem I have with that hit is that there wasn't a response from the rest of the team. And so now you leave a young, frustrated player feeling like he needs to carve out his space. And that, I'm telling you, Ken, that cross-check doesn't do it. No one is saying, I better stay away from that guy because he just gave me a little punch to the back with his stick and took a penalty. That gives me more reason to go after him the next time. If I'm coaches with Seattle, I'm saying, get on this player. Look what happens when you get him frustrated. The Jets need to step in and look after this player. He's talented. He's slick. He's skilled. He's not going to be the kind of player you don't want Nick Suzuki or Cole Caulfield having to take care of themselves and carve out their own space. Well, Perfetti is the Jets' version of that. Someone needs to be doing that work for him. So I disagree with you because A, the Jets should be taking care of that business, and B, what Cole Perfetti did does nothing to carve out space for himself.
Yeah, I mean, so in a perfect world, I'm with you. I mean, after the first knee on knee, then someone should have gone after Brett Ritchie. But here's the problem. Brett Ritchie is a bit player for the Calgary Flames.
I couldn't agree with this more. Turd Ferguson's comment saying the cross-check was more of a message to the Jets, Renny, than the Flames. I agree. I think that's a young player saying, geez, and doing it now. It's costing his team, but I agree with this. This is a guy saying, like, what, do I have to do this myself? Is that what this has come to? I couldn't agree with this comment more. Sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. I don't really have much else to dig in on that. I mean,
okay.
Was there some frustration? Of course. But one quick one here from Daryl Granko. Ehlers skating yet? Well, Daryl, the update from Rick Bowness before the team left was that Nikolai Ehlers is not on the road trip. He was not planning to skate in Winnipeg on the weekend. The plan is for Nikolai Ehlers to skate on Tuesday or Wednesday. That was the update that was provided. By Rick Bowness. We reported it on Twitter. It was in my story on Cole Perfetti on the weekend on Friday. So the Jets said they were being cautious. Rick Bowness went out of his way to say that it was not a setback. He said it, I think, 5 times in that small span of time. again, this is taking a long time. It's the 11th game he's missed, and
Yeah.
we didn't talk really much about the power play, but I mean, today was a great example of the Jets missing Nikolai Ehlers. I mean, the zone entries were not crisp. They didn't get set up. They were not dangerous. They were far too cute. And once Nikolai Ehlers is back, then you have an opportunity to try some things in the top six that maybe you're not sure you can do right now, right? I mean, that's the thing, Sean. I mean, once that happens, then maybe you see Mason Appleton go back onto the third line or whatever else. And again, I don't think that Appleton played poorly. I thought he actually played quite a few shifts with Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois in the third period, and I thought that Mason Appleton had a really good chance on the backhand. But the problem was the puck kind of rolled on him. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where things go from there. But one quick one. I mean, you wanted to jump in. I mean, we had a debate about it on the old Twitter machine, by text here. Why don't you give your thoughts on the Mackenzie Weegar penalty on Kyle Connor when he was in?
So it's Juice on the program said that he didn't think it was a call, and I think even Ron said that he thought it was a weak call. I was blown away that it was a call. I mean, what he doesn't get the stick on the hands. He takes a swing at the puck. He misses the puck. And I do agree. If anyone saw the debate, Elliot Friedman was saying, well, if you're going to call a penalty, it should be a penalty shot, right? I agree with that there in that situation. I just thought there was so many plays towards the end of the game. Now, Kyle Connor gets tied up with Nazem Kadri at the end of the game and absolutely garage sales him because he gets his stick around him and hooked against the net. Well, I know he didn't mean to get his stick hooked on the net, but there is no doubt about it that Nazem Kadri ends up on the ground because he's tripped by Kyle Connor. And the refs let that go. And now, Jets fans, I can hear you. You're being, there's Renny siding with the other team. This is why it's a problem, because later on, with about 2 minutes left in the game, Mason Appleton is tripped along the boards in what should have been a penalty, and the Jets should have had a late penalty in the game. But because the refs had basically lost the plot throughout the game, they couldn't call that at that time because they can't let the Nazem Kadri the Kyle Connor penalty on Nazem Kadri go and then turn around and call that on Appleton. So the Jets lost a late game opportunity because the refs were essentially stopped doing their jobs at some point. And I feel like they stopped doing their jobs because they went so overboard on the Kyle Connor breakaway. Now, you and I have a difference. You think hey, it's one of the highest scoring players in the league last year, goal scorers. These guys just don't lose the handle. I mean, Mackenzie Weegar, I take a look at that. If that is considered like this, we're getting into the territory that people are complaining about in the NFL, the roughing the passer calls, where it's like, what do you want a guy to do? Like you gotta get a quarterback to the ground. You need to pick him up, grab a pillow from the sidelines, put it down, and gently lay him down in order to take the quarterback down nowadays. That play on Kyle Connor reeked of that to me. That was no penalty. Like, you might as well tell a guy just to stop chasing the guy and let the play go through if you're going to call a penalty on that. There was nowhere near enough contact that should have been a penalty. And, I don't like complaining about the refs. I'm just going in that direction because you brought it up. Did you have thoughts that you wanted to share before we go?
Yeah, I mean, my counter to you was the same. Kyle Connor blew by Mackenzie Weegar and he was caught flat-footed. And again, I'm with you. Was it egregious? No, I don't think it was obvious that it should have been called. I just think it's a lot easier to see in super slow-mo than it was in real time. And I'm still not 100% sure. And again, I'm not saying this would make it a penalty because it's always up for debate. But I do think that his stick actually gets into Kyle Connor's hands at the very end of it. But by then, I think the puck was kind of already rolling off his stick. So it wasn't a great, Weegar kind of puts his arm on him. I don't think it meant that he twisted him, but I do think that he impeded the breakaway opportunity. But at the same time, I don't think it was obvious, but I also don't think it was as egregious as you do. But again, this is.
I just think yeah. Well, there was a play in that game too where Scheifele chips the puck behind the defenseman, and the defenseman just basically takes him right out of the play. It's an interference call. Like that. This was established a couple of years ago. It seemed like, I'm going to tell you this, Ken. I think this is evidence on my side that was a bad call, because I think the refs made that call. I think they took a look at it during the intermission and thought, okay, guys, we need to scale it back here. And then they scaled right back and just stopped calling anything. Right. I think what we saw for the rest of the game, that I do believe in the end negated opportunities for the Winnipeg Jets, one on that Scheifele call and the other one on the late Mason Appleton call. Them, basically taking their chips away from the table or taking their ball and going home with it, basically put it in a situation where a team that needs to grind the team down or grind the game down in the third period was able to do so because the refs essentially stopped calling the game. That's what I thought. Anyway, before we do go, I just wanted to give a shout out to our sponsors, who we're just so happy they're with us. We've said this once, we'll say it 1,000 times. If you appreciate these conversations happening in these spaces, please appreciate our sponsors who make that happen. Of course, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, the Johnston Group, Lou Ferlin, Homefield, and Cambrian Credit Union. And once again, I know it's late. We really appreciate everyone being with us here almost 1:30 in the morning. It means a ton to us. I know it wasn't asked for, but I'm going to end the show with some Tristan Rivers music because it was asked for a number of times and I kept forgetting it when I was at the arena. So I'm throwing on a headband and I'm ending the show with some Tristan Rivers rock and roll here, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night after the game. It's going to be another late one. We appreciate you being with us. Here's Sean's headband.